Ready to turn your letters into a real working font? In this video, I'm pulling back the curtain and showing you how I take hand-lettered characters, bring them into professional font-making software, set spacing, program ligatures, and export a polished OTF file. With over 4,000 successful students inside my course who have already monetized their fonts, I'll prove how easy and rewarding creating your own hand-lettered font can be. Let's get started. We're starting this off in Illustrator where we left off in video number 1, so if you haven't seen that video yet, I'll leave a link on screen and in the video description. So the last time that we were here, we had all of our letters brought in, they're all cleaned up, they're sequenced within layers right here, and we enlarged their thumbnail. We've got a lot of information to get through on this one, so I apologize ahead of time if the pace is a little quick, but remember you can always pause and rewatch whatever you would like here on YouTube. So the first thing you want to do is find your letter O. So I've got my O selected, and all I'm going to do is click on it and then hit Command-C to copy it. You could also go up here and go Edit, Copy, and now we're going to head into Glyphs. Totally fine if you've never used or even heard of Glyphs before. I'm going to walk you through all the basic tools that you need to know. There really are not that many. It's a very intuitive program. So I'm going to open that up. I'm using Glyphs 3 for this demo, but they also have a light version called Glyphs Mini, which will also work very, very similarly. So you can use either one for this, following these exact same steps. So I'm going to open up at Glyphs 3, and I'm going to scroll down here, and I always like beginning with their default Latin set. So I'm just going to click on that, and then toggle this over so it can prepare glyphs for basic. If you're creating a multilingual font, you'll want to at the very least select Western European, but it provides you a lot of other options too. So you'll have those characters right away that you know which ones you need to input. So I'm going to hit create file, and when you do, it just brings this up. We've got a very basic font file started for us. So I've got my all caps, I've got my lowercase, and then I've got a space. Now we also created some punctuation for this font. If you'll remember, we did a question mark, an exclamation point, and a period. So we need to bring those in right now. And if you come over here where it says categories, I can toggle down punctuation, and now you can see that there's more available to us that aren't currently present on this grid view. So if I right click on other, and I can come right through here, I can locate the period that I had, the exclamation point. So I'm just going to hold Command on my keyboard and select the exclamation. And then I also had the question mark. So I'll also select that one, and then I can click Generate, and that will pop those in. And if I come up here and click on all, it now has punctuation right here. And you'll notice that these have gray squares around them right now. What that means is that these characters were affected before the file was saved. Once you save the file, the gray boxes will go away. So let's come up here and name our font right now, and I'm going to talk you through a few features that you have access to. So if I hit the little I right here, I can get to my info. This is where you will want to place the name of your font, and if you don't know what the name is going to be yet, that's totally fine. It's completely normal. You can just put a placeholder right here. You can change this whenever you want. So you are not locked into whatever you decide here. I'm kind of playing around with the name Junebug for this font. I don't know why it came to me, but it just felt like it would work for this. So I'm just going to put that in as my placeholder right now. And because I don't want this when I save it to be the final file until I test it, I know that I'm sure, I always start out by labeling mine like V1, and then I'll test it. If I find an issue with it that I need to go back and fix, then I'll come back here and rename it V2. So it just avoids caching issues once we get to that point where we export our OTF. So this is just a nice extra practice that you can get into. If you come over here and hit the little plus icon, you can also add in your information so it's embedded into the font file. So you can add a bunch of information right here just to associate the font with you no matter what. So you'll want to take advantage of this, especially as you get closer to exporting your final font. Next, over at Masters, this is where we're going to input what style of font. I'm just going to leave this one as regular. We're not going to mess with our metrics at all. We're keeping this super, super simple. And if you'll remember, Over here, when I click on font, you can see units per M. We've got this set at 1,000, which you'll remember is the same exact height that we made our characters over in Illustrator. So that's why they will be brought in here perfectly, because this is 1,000 units per M and we created ours at 1,000 pixels. So they coordinate really well. So that's the correlation there. There's no need to worry about exports. Under features, we will get to this once we talk about standard ligatures. Over in other, the only thing you need to know here is if you ever apply PUA encoding to your font in the future, you'll want to make sure that use custom naming is checked. And then if you want to make any notes right here, there's space to do that. So that's a quick overview of this. Obviously, I go in way more depth into all of this within my course, but for now, these are the basics that you will want to be aware of as you're getting started. So I'm going to close out of this, and now that we have the name of our font right here, you can see now we need to name the Glyphs file. So the name of your font is different than your Glyphs file. So we need to save our working Glyphs file, and then once we export our OTF, this is the name that it will take on. So an important differentiation right here between these two names. So I'm just going to go File, Save As, and I'll name this a similar name. Just to show you that they're two different things, I didn't want to name them the same thing, so I've just called this Junebug Work in Progress V1. All right, now we can begin bringing in letters. The first thing we want to start with is a capital O, and I will explain why in just a minute. So we need to go into Illustrator, make sure you've copied this, which we did, so Command C to copy. We're going to come back into Glyphs. We're going to locate the uppercase O and just double click on it. When you are in this view, you want to make sure first under View that you have Show Master Compatibility right here. I don't believe you have this in Glyphs Mini, which is also totally fine. These are also the other options that I have visible for mine. Up here you can see we have our cursor. This is your selection, and when this is active you can see these lines on the screen. So this is our baseline that we want to align everything to, like we did when we were cleaning up our letters. And the only other ones that you really need to know up here is the text tool. This will be for testing your characters once you have more input. And then the measurement tool we use very briefly. And you can also use the rotation tool from time to time, but those are the only ones that I use. And I will show you how to use all of them once we get to it. So the most important thing to remember right here is you need to have your cursor selected when you're pasting letters in. There are so many times when I've had the text selected and you go to paste it in and you get all this weird code that shows up. So if that happens, it just means that you have to switch to your cursor. So I'm going to paste this in now. I'm just going to hit Command V to paste. You can also come over here and hit Edit, Paste. And I'm just going to drag this down so it's kind of around the baseline right here. And we can align things differently later. Now the left side spacing over here to the left of your character is called your left side bearing, so LSB. And then on the right side, this is your RSB, or right side bearing. So now we have to define for the letter O how much space is going to be on the left side and on the right side. So there's kind of a handy method that you can use that I want to show you to determine a starting point for that. You've got some increments to work with, and then you can increase them or decrease them from there. So the rule says that if we take this measurement tool right here, let me first zoom in. I'm just hitting Command plus on my keyboard, and this is your counter. So it's the negative space within your letter O. If I grab the ruler and I just click on it, you're going to see all these numbers show up, but don't worry about that. We're just going to click in the widest area of the counter and just click and drag. I'm eyeballing it here. It looks like the widest part, and I'm getting about like 233 is what I have. So I'm going to grab my calculator, and the rule says that whatever this counter space is, you take 1/3 of that and put that on the left side and on the right side. So if I take 233 and divide it by 3, that's 77. I'm actually going to round down to about 75 as just a starting point, and we can see if that's too much space or not enough space. So over here, this is your O. This is your LSB, so your left side bearing, or the space to the left of your character. This is your RSB, or the space to the right side of your character. And down here is the total width of your character. So I am going to put in 75 here and 75 here, And now if I zoom out, I'm hitting Command hyphen. If I select my text tool up here, and you can see I've got my cursor. Whenever the cursor is in front of the letter, you can see this is the letter that's selected. If it's after the letter, nothing is selected. So if you need to select or change increments for your letter, you always need to make sure that the cursor is in front of it. So if I type another capital O, because it's the only letter I have so far, and I have a bunch of O's right here, we can kind of see what the space looks like, but that's pretty meaningless without another character to reference. So now we're going to bring in our capital H. And the significance here is that the O is the character that has a curve on both sides, and an H has a straight line on both sides. So you can see right here, I've got my O in this tab. It made its own tab when I double clicked on O, and over here is my full font. So if I click on this tab, I can return back to my entire font, and I can double click on H now. And remember, we need to return to our cursor when we're pasting something in. So I'm going to click on that so I can see my grid. I'm going to head back into Illustrator, deselect my O, and locate my letter H. It already feels too slanted here, so I'm just going to rotate it a little bit before I bring it in. I'm going to copy it once again, so Command C, and then I'm going to head into Glyphs, and I'm going to paste Command V, and I'm just going to click and drag it around where my baseline is. And if you ever deselect your letter and then you need to reselect it, you can see I can't select it like I can in Illustrator. You just need to double click along the path like this, and then you can just click anywhere on the path and drag it around again. So that's how to reselect it. And that looks pretty good along the baseline, but now we need to apply another rule. So this starting point rule, and we can change this as much as we want, it's just to use to get you started. So the rule says that whatever you used for O, so I used 75 on both sides, you take that number and you do 1.5 times that for the left side bearing and the right side bearing of H. So it's kind of a kooky rule, but it helps get you started. So if I take 75 and multiply by 1.5, I get 112. I'm going to round down a little bit down to 110 because this seems like a lot of space on both sides compared to other fonts I've done. So now we can put in our O's and our H's. So we can kind of see how they look together. I can also reduce the size of my letters down here at the bottom. That's another way of kind of fake zooming out. So if I just drag this bar and drag it down, I can get a smaller preview. And what I'm looking for here is a nice rhythm between the letters. Right now, it seems like this gap is just too big for me. So I want them to be a little bit tighter together. So I'm going to first start with my O. Let's just try 50 here because I think it should be quite a bit tighter. So if I go 50 times 1.5, it's 75. So for my H, I will change that to 75, and we'll see if that's tight enough or if we want to go tighter. Because these are so bold in all caps, I don't want the space to get too tight between them. I still want your eyes to be able to see everything really well. I think this is where I'm going to stay for this. So we can move forward. So now we've got our H, which has a straight line on both sides, and our O that has a curve on both sides. So now we can use what we've learned and apply it to other letters that we have. So if I close these tabs and I come back to my font view, I'm going to save my file, and you'll see that these gray boxes go away. So I'm just hitting Command S on my keyboard, and now I know that my file is saved. And now if we look at the other letters that we have, since we're just focusing on all caps right now, you could say that a C is very similar to an O. You can make the argument that this is a curve just like the O, and this technically could be considered an O as well because it's just open. So we could use the same increments that we use for O on C. So let's go grab our capital C. With hand-lettered fonts, it could be a little different, and I'll show you how to make tweaks to that if it's not working perfectly. But as I said before, this is just a nice starting point that you can work from, but at least you've got a base to get you going. So I'm going to copy this Command C, come back into Glyphs, double click on C, make sure my cursor is selected up here, and then paste it in. And I'm going to zoom in and just get it on the baseline. Now I can put in my increments, but it can be difficult to always remember all those numbers that you used before. So luckily with Glyphs, I can just say the C is the same as the capital O. So if I just type in a capital O here, it's the same as a capital O on the left side, and it's the same as a capital O on the right side. So that's how it gets me started. And now I can put in my H's and my O's. I like doing a letter on both sides. So I've got this side of the C with an H, a straight line, and then the curved side. And I can look down here and see if that rhythm feels really good space-wise. And it does. That totally works. So I'm all set with that. I can close it and then save my file. So now I've already got 3 letters input, and now we can look at other letters. The D, you can see we've got a straight line, so that's just like the H, and we've got a curve on the right side, which is similar to the O. So let's go grab the capital D from Illustrator, and I'm going to copy it and then come into Glyphs, double click, make sure your cursor is selected up at the top. It's a really good habit to get into, and then paste it in, Command V, and then just align it where you want it on the baseline. And now down here, I'm going to say it's H on the left side and it is O on the right side. And now we can test it. I can type in my O's and my H's. I also like throwing in any of the other letters that I have, just so I have a little bit more differentiation. And I'm also looking at the height of my letters. Since I'm manually placing them on the baseline, I want to make sure that none of my letters are too high or too low in relation to the other letters. So this also looks good, so I can close out of this and then save my file again, Command S. So now I want to talk to you. There's a bunch of letters that you can continue with this way, like the G could have O on both sides. Your I would be H on both sides. So you can get through a lot of these, the M, the N, but what happens for special letters where it doesn't work out perfectly? So let's talk about the A. The A is a notoriously trickier one to figure out what it should be. So let's go grab that. I'm going to copy it, double click, make sure my cursor is selected at the top, and then paste it in. Line it up the best I can along the baseline. And this one also looks like it could be rotated a little bit, so I want to show you how to do that. If I select my rotation tool up here at the top, if I click on it, you can see this is your point of rotation. So if I just click in the middle, I can move it. And then if I click outside, now I can rotate from that point. So that's a little straighter, so that's nice. And down here, we're just going to start with an O. Since I've got a little bit of a curve right here, and I know I'm creating some visual negative space because this A just naturally tilts in, so you have a larger gap here than you do down here. So I'm going to go with an O just as a starting point, and then we'll see if we need to make any changes. So if I select my T, and I can put in H's and O's, and just kind of look at how everything feels. So over here, this feels nice when there's a straight line, and it also feels pretty okay with a curve as well. Obviously, I'm going to get more space up here just by the nature of things, but over here, this just feels a lot wider. With hand-lettered fonts, you're always going to run into different things, so it's just something to double check. I'm also noticing that my A is a little low on my baseline, especially if I look down here versus the O. The O feels too high compared to the A, and because I put the O in first, I know I need to make the change to the A. So I need to make sure my cursor is in front of the A, then I can reselect, and because this is already selected, now I can just tap it up with my arrow key until it feels more in line with my other letters. So that feels better. Now I can return to my text tool and we can adjust this. So the issue is on the left side of the A. The right side of the A feels okay. So I'm going to come over here where my LSB is, the left side bearing, and I'm going to say that this side equals the O measurement, but I need it to be a little bit smaller. So I'm going to go -10, and that's going to bring it in just a little bit. So now because it's still based on the letter O, if I change my O at any point in time, all of my other letters that are based on O will also change. So you don't have to go into every individual one. If you make one change, it will affect things universally. So that's a really nice workflow tip to make sure that if you change your mind about anything in the future, you're not going to have to go through every single letter and change things. So huge, huge time saver. So that's what you do with all of your other letters that aren't perfect. And you can do it with the right side bearing, and you can do minus, you can do plus, and you just get through all of your letters going that way. So I've already taken up a bunch of time, and I want to make sure I fit as much into this video as I can. So we're just going to skip to what happens when you get to lowercase. If you're making an all caps font and I want my lowercase a to be the same as my uppercase a, all I have to do is select my lowercase a, come up here, go to Glyph, add component, and type in my uppercase A. My uppercase A is already here. If I just double click on this, it's going to input the uppercase A, and if I click on this, you can see down here it automatically uses the same settings as the component glyph. So this was the uppercase A, so it's taking in the exact same settings, and now it works for lowercase a. The other thing I want to quickly mention is kerning. In my class, I teach all about kerning groups, which is really the best workflow for kerning. But if you do any type of minute kerning where you don't need a lot of kerning in your font at all and you only have a couple of relationships that need tweaking, I want to show you how to make sure that they're implemented here. So let's say that my A and my C, when they're together, they need just a little extra spacing than what the default is. Let's say this spacing works well for all the other letters, but when it comes to an A and a C, it just doesn't work quite well. So what you need to do is down here where it says kern, maybe I just need to add an extra 10 spacing here. But because I did it for the A and the C, the capital A and the capital C, now I also need to make sure that this same relationship exists for the uppercase A, lowercase c, and the lowercase a and lowercase c. So you just want to make sure you're covering all of your bases here. I know I said that really fast, so we'll go back and I'll show you how it's done. So I'm going to close out of this. I need to make sure that I have my C component so we can work with this example. So I'm just going to hit Glyph, add component, type in my uppercase C and double click, and now that's applied. I'm going to save my file. If you can't remember what you did for kerning, you can always go to Window and Kerning, and you can see right here when I have my A on the left and my C on the right, the value in between them is going to increase by 10. So now I can take right here my lowercase a and lowercase c. If I double click on this and just type a lowercase c, if I put my cursor right in between them, I can put 10 right here. That way it's consistent no matter what the user types. So you can see uppercase A, uppercase C, lowercase a, lowercase c, and now I also want to have a situation where I have an uppercase A and a lowercase c. So right here I also need to put 10, and now it added it in. So uppercase A and lowercase c. So I've covered all my bases. I can't really imagine a time where you would have a lowercase a and an uppercase c right next to each other. You could include that if you want, but that seems like a lot of extra unnecessary work. So I'm going to close out of this, save my file, and now I am all set with that example. Now, the last couple of things I just want to share with you is determining your space. So when it comes to your space, I need to first go grab my uppercase N for this. Technically, the lowercase n is supposed to be the average width of all of your characters traditionally, but since we don't have a lowercase here, we'll just use our uppercase as the example. So I'm going to just paste this in, and I will use an H setting on both sides. So let me just check this really quick, make sure everything looks okay. I think it needs to be brought down a little bit, so I'll bring it down. I could talk about this stuff with you guys all day. I love talking about fonts. Okay, this is all set now, so I can close out of this and just save my file. As I was saying, the average spacing of all of your letters is typically equivalent to a lowercase n, but since we don't have it, we're going to use our uppercase n. So if I select this, once we come in here, you can see down here that the total width of the letter n is 862. We've got 75 on the left side and 75 on the right side. So if I grab my calculator again and I go 862 minus 150, so 150 is 75 times 2. And that's giving me 712, so I'm going to bring that down to 700, and that gives me a starting point for my space. So I'm going to come in here and just make this 700. And as I said before, it's just a starting point. I typically don't add my space in until I've got all of my alphabet completed. That way I can do sample text and make sure everything works well. I can see already that 700 is way too big, but at least I've started now. So I'm going to bring this down to 500 and see That still seems kind of wide. Let's go to 400. That's feeling a lot better. I'm going to see if 300 feels too small. That's starting to get a little tight, so I'm going to come up to 350. It just gives you a number to begin with. If you have an arbitrary number you would just like to begin with, you could totally do that and just work from there. But that's a nice rule to be aware of. So I'm going to leave mine at 350 for now. So that's your spacing character. So when it comes to punctuation, it's going to work very similar to what we did with our H and our O. Only this time, I personally like basing most of mine off of the period because it can take care of a lot of different punctuation, like your comma, your semicolon, your colon, your exclamation, your bar. There's so many different pieces of punctuation that you can base your period off of. It's kind of like the H up here as being just a straight line. So I base everything off of my period down here, and I use the period as my left side bearing and right side bearing. You don't have to reference a capital letter every time. You could reference punctuation. It just needs to match whatever the name of the glyph is or your character here. So I can go grab a period and I'm going to paste it in and then bring it down to my baseline. Now for our period, the main things that you need to keep in mind, you're likely going to have a space that comes after the period, so that's going to be additional space on top of whatever you defined for your RSB. And then for the LSB, it could really be anything. I generally like keeping it between 0 and whatever increment I'm using for O. So for this, I'll just start kind of in between. I'm going to start with 25 and then just kind of see how it works. And I don't like personally keeping this at 0, so I'm just going to put 10 right here and see if it still cooperates really well with my space that comes after it. So now I can just type in whatever I would like right here. I've got an N here, I've got a D, and that kind of feels a little distant here. It's not too bad. I think I want to bring it in just a little bit more. Let's see how it looks with an N. I think that's comfortable. I don't want it to be too tight, so I'm looking for a happy medium. When letters that naturally create extra visual negative space, like the D right here, I want to make sure that it's still comfortable for that and it's still comfortable when you've got a letter that's a little tighter, like my A right here. So with my A, that feels too tight for me. So I'm going to jump this back up to 25. I would rather have a more comfortable space right here because most letters are like this than for my D. And that still feels okay. So I'm going to leave this like this. I did a little bit of work and I've got all of my letters here, my uppercase and my lowercase, that are exactly identical. And I've got my period in here. So for my exclamation point, I just want to show you how you can use your periods increments on both sides, especially for like an exclamation point where you'd likely have a space on the other side of it. You just want to make sure that whatever character you're defining and using your period increments, that they're used in a similar placement. Otherwise, you'll have to alter that. So for my exclamation point, I'm just going to copy this, paste it in, make sure I move this to my baseline, and I'm going to put period on this side. I'm just writing the name of the glyph, and you can see it takes on that spacing right away. And the same thing over here. So now we can put in some of our letters, and that is very tall. I might actually rescale this a little bit. So you can use the scale tool for this, or you can just grab a node and I hold shift and just bring it down a little bit, and that feels a little more comfortable. So this right here feels too tight, and let's see, down here also feels too tight. You can see because I resized it, I need to update my metrics. So whenever this red appears, you just hit the little refresh icon, and now you're back to normal. So I'm going to increase this so I can say equals period plus, let's do like 40. Feels like it needs more space. I'll do 50 here, but I still want to keep a small amount of space on the other side. So that feels better. Maybe a little more. We'll go up to 70. I like that. Okay, so I can save my file now that I've done those changes. And then the last thing I want to show you, I promised you that I would show you how to implement standard ligatures because we created a few in last week's video. So I want to show you how you can put these in here. It will be a slightly different process whether you're creating in Glyphs 3 like I am or Glyphs Mini. So Glyphs Mini, you can just input it, everything's fine, you're all good. With Glyphs 3, there's one extra step, but it's crazy easy. So what you want to do first is let's go see what type of ligature we want to put in here. And I will grab my double M. So I'm just going to click on it, copy, Command C, come into Glyphs, and now we need to define the character because it's not here, it's not over here. So what we need to do is hit the little plus icon down here to create a brand new glyph, and then double click in here, and you're going to name this uppercase M underscore uppercase M dot Liga, liga for ligature. And now I can double click into it, hit Command V to paste those in, line them up. And because I have two M's, I can say the LSB is an uppercase M and the RSB is an uppercase M. And now I can test them with other letters to make sure I'm on a good baseline. Let me also put my other M in front to kind of see where that hits. Some other letters here. I think they could move up just a little bit, so I'll do that. And now we can just double check and make sure that all of the relationships feel pretty comfortable, which I think they do. The one that I'm not a fan of is this D right here. So I need to make sure I'm adding a little bit of kerning to this. So I'm just going to do -20 here. And then I need to also make sure you can see it's my lowercase d. So I'm going to put an uppercase D and do the exact same thing. And now that is all set. We can check it on the other side. So I can close out of this, Command S to save it. And now I need to add the exact same thing as a lowercase m. So I'm going to hit the plus and put in lowercase m underscore lowercase m dot Liga. And now I can do the same thing I did before with my lowercase characters. So glyph, add component, and then I just need to locate that ligature that we put in, double click, and now it's in here. And it's going to take on the exact same qualities right here for spacing. And if I put in a lowercase d, I need to add that kerning in once again. So I have a lowercase d, I'm going to put in -20, uppercase D, do the same thing. And now this one's all set. Close out of it and save it. So that's how you'll do all of your ligatures. I had a couple 3-character ligatures that I had planned. So for that one, you would just hit the plus, and I had an ing, so I would just do uppercase I underscore uppercase N underscore uppercase G and then .Liga. You can put as many letters as you want right here. There's no limitation. So you're good to go with as many as you need. And then just remember to repeat whatever you did up here, down here with your lowercase. I mentioned that there was one other step that you needed to do with your ligatures before moving on to exporting. And with Glyphs 3, Glyphs Mini are already ready to go. With Glyphs 3, you want to come up here where the little I is, and then under features, you just want to hit update, or you can hit the little refresh right here. So this is your ligature, and then that will automatically update that. And if I click on this, you can see it's saying substitute your double cap M by the ligature that we defined. It automatically generates this. So this is all good to go. To export your font, you want to come up here and go File, Export. And we want to use OTF because we're using modern font features. In order to do that, you want to make sure you have OTF up here selected, PostScript, CFF, and then OTF right here. And then you can choose where you want it to go. So I'm going to define where mine's going to go. I avoid test install. I've had some caching issues in the past with this. You can try it out if you want. It's just not my favorite way, which is why I name mine V1, V2 until I'm happy with it, and then I export the final font name. So I'm just going to define where mine's going to save, and then we'll save it out and test it. Once you export your OTF file, it will be saved as whatever you named yours right here. So in the info, under font, whatever this is. So what we need to do now is go and open it with FontBook so we can install it onto our computer. You can see I have my OTF file right here, and I need to install it into my computer. So I'm going to right click on it and then choose Open with FontBook. When I do that, I'll get a font preview. Obviously, I haven't put any numbers in yet, so I'm just getting the characters that I've already defined, and I can hit install. I'm going to create a brand new document in Illustrator, and we're just going to test it out now. I'm going to hit my text tool, just T on your keyboard. I'm just going to type in my Quick Brown Fox text, and we can apply. If we go into our character palette and I just type in Junebug, you can see here it is. And we can test our font, and we're already using the font that we made with our own letters. So it's now completely typable and shareable and sellable, which is really exciting to see your lettering come to life, to actually type with your own letters. So now you know how to create your lettering, clean up your letters, bring it into Glyphs. Glyphs is really not scary at all. It's extremely intuitive, and as you saw, we only use a few tools and we can accomplish so much with it. Now that you've had a little taste of hand-lettered font making, if you're ready to deep dive and also learn how to create seamlessly connecting script fonts with stylistic and contextual alternates, kerning groups, symbols fonts, PUA encoding, plus my best tips and strategies for monetizing your fonts, then you'll want to head over to learnfontmaking.com. Once again, links to everything mentioned in this video are right in the video description. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe, and I will see you next time.